Hello everyone, the Crime Life channel is with you. Stephen Charles Clark was born in 1969 in Colchester, Essex, England, to Charles and Doris. Both Stephen's mother and father were police officers. He had a younger sister named Victoria. When Stephen was just 2 years old, he was involved in a terrible accident. Doris left the house to go shopping when Stephen, unbeknownst to her, followed her. She didn't know about it until she heard a noise and saw that her son had been hit by a truck. Unfortunately, after that, he was left with a damaged arm and developed a limp. Despite this misfortune, Stephen grew up to be a cheerful, intelligent, and happy man who loved music, bowling, and hanging out at the local pub. He also loved swimming and was passionately interested in computers. Saturday football. Stephen and his father Charles often attended football matches, usually on Saturdays. Charles bought tickets for both of them, but for unknown reasons, he refused to buy Stephen a ticket to the match on December 28, 1992, telling him that if he wanted to attend this game, he would have to pay for his ticket. In the end, Stephen decided not to go to the game with his father. Doris and Stephen's walked together. On December 28th at about 14 hours, Charles Clark left the house to go to the stadium, which was about 16 kilometers from home. After he left, Doris and Stephen decided to walk together to the nearby beach in Saltburn. According to Doris, when they returned, Stephen told her that he needed to go to the bathroom. They stopped at a public toilet next to the Promenade Pier, located about 5 kilometers from their home. Doris went into the women's bathroom shortly after her son went to the men's room. When Doris came out a few minutes later, Stephen was nowhere to be found. Assuming he was still in the bathroom, she waited a few minutes before concluding that he must have already left and headed home without her. She headed towards their house. When she returned home, Stephen was not there. Later, she was asked why she didn't go into the men's room to see if her son was okay. She explained, "He would be terrified. He was 23 years old, he was not a child." Stephen Clark is missing. When Charles, Stephen's father, returned from the game, Doris told him what had happened, and the couple immediately went in search of their son. "I drove my car to Saltburn and drove all around," Charles said. After fruitless searches, they realized that it was time to involve the police. Stephen's parents reported him missing at 6 p.m. on the same day. Doris informed them that she witnessed 2 men with a little girl enter the toilet immediately after Stephen. These people have never been found. In fact, the police were unable to find any witnesses who would have seen Doris and Stephen on the beach that ill-fated day. During the initial search organized by the police, no evidence was found, nothing at all. It seemed that Stephen went into the toilet and disappeared into thin air. Doris and Charles Clark. In the days and weeks after Stephen's disappearance, the police received several reports from those who allegedly saw Stephen. One woman claimed to have seen Stephen leaving the beach from her apartment window 2 days after he disappeared, in the company of an elderly man with glasses. However, the police were skeptical of her story, noting that it was unlikely that she would have been able to see anyone clearly enough to identify them, given the distance between her living room window and the area where the 2 men were allegedly seen. On January 14, 1993, Stan Kamash, a friend of the Clarks, allegedly saw Stephen in Redcar, less than 16 kilometers from Saltburn. He said that he had talked with Stephen and did not attach much importance to this conversation at the time because he did not yet know that the young man was wanted. Interestingly, years later, Stan changed his story, admitting that not only had he not spoken to Stephen that day, but also that the person he noticed was not actually Stephen, rather someone who just resembled him. Why he initially lied remains a mystery. Ultimately, none of the reported sightings could be verified, and due to the lack of leads or real suspects to work with, the case quickly stalled. Anonymous letter. In 1999, investigators received an anonymous letter that contained information about what really happened to Stephen. Detective Chief Inspector Sean Page described the contents of the letter. The letter is very precise in its nature. The author of the letter hinted that Stephen is dead. The full contents of this letter have never been made public. In fact, the existence of the letter became known only in 2020, when it was finally made public in a heavily stripped-down form. In the same year, the case was suddenly reclassified as a murder investigation. Apparently, the author of the letter accused Charles and Doris of the alleged murder of their son. In September 2020, Charles and Doris Clark were arrested. The woman who wrote the letter, whose identity was never revealed, eventually turned up, but she was unable to provide any evidence of the Clarks' guilt. Doris and Charles were released on bail. A thorough search was carried out at the Clark house, as well as in their yard, garden, and nearby wooded area, but nothing relevant was found. In February 2021, after a 17-week investigation, Doris and Charles were officially cleared of suspicion of their son's disappearance. After decades of silence, Stephen Clark's sister, Victoria Orr, appeared on the Missing podcast. Our family relationship was filled with love. Stephen and I could not have wished for a happier childhood, Victoria recalled. Stephen's disappearance has become a real nightmare for all of us, she added. Victoria said there was no way her parents would have harmed Stephen and criticized the police for relying on an anonymous letter. I mean, the letter was even addressed to the wrong police. So why it was taken so seriously, I really don't know, but it devastated our family, she said. Victoria said the Clarks had filed a formal complaint against the police through their lawyer. Detective Mark Williams called the case one of the strangest he had ever investigated. Detective Chief Inspector Sean Page said there were currently no active lines of inquiry, but that they would continue to respond to any data and information that may help us find Stephen. Apart from his parents, there were no other suspects in Stephen's case. Versions of why he disappeared include suicide, kidnapping, murder, and leaving to start a new life. But to this day, nothing significant has been discovered that would give plausibility to any of these versions. Stephen's parents are not losing hope. They stayed in the same house in case Stephen showed up. Doris says she would hug him tightly if he appeared on the path near the house. Unfortunately, every day the chances of this becoming more and more illusory. The disappearance of Stephen Clark very mysterious. Sometimes similar events happen in our lives and it's sad. We hope that Stephen will be found, but life is unpredictable. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel. There are new videos coming out all the time. See you soon.